What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we're going to be talking about X-Men number 7 by Gerry Duggan and Pepe Larraz. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the reasoning behind Cyclops' mysterious death that we talked about in X-Men number 6 that led to him becoming Captain Krakoa. And more importantly, we're also going to dive a little bit more into the reasoning behind the evolution of X-Men character Synch and his potential to become the next Omega level mutant. We're going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I post multiple videos throughout the week, plus live stream the Blerd Cave every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So hit that bell button, that way you don't miss anything. And while we're at it, if you enjoy the video, Hulk smash that like button. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about X-Men number 7.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so last time that we talked about the X-Men proper by Gerry Duggan and Pepe Larraz, we discussed the death, quotey fingers, death of Cyclops and his transformation into Captain Krakoa and all the reasonings behind it, why it needed to happen. But what we didn't know at the time is why was all this going on in the first place? Now, yes, we did discover that Dr. Stasis had fed the Daily Bugle's own Ben Urich with information about mutant resurrection, and in the previous issues of X-Men leading up to issue number 7, we learned that Ben Urich had come to Cyclops in confidence to tell him that he had this information so that Cyclops and the rest of mutant kind would be prepared for the expose that Ben Urich was preparing to release that would share the mutants' secret of resurrection with the entire world. Now, of course, the impression was given that the reasoning behind Cyclops becoming Captain Krakoa was because of either A, the information about Cyclops being leaked, which we did later learn did not actually happen. Ben Urich's mind has been mysteriously wiped. He has no clue about any of the information that he received from Dr. Stasis. So that left the only other possibility being that Cyclops must have been killed in a very public fashion. And instead of letting the secret of mutant resurrection become a reality, the Quiet Council likely just decided to just pretend that Cyclops was in fact legitimately dead. It did kind of seem as though maybe they were staging his death, but no, he actually did die. He was killed during an attack by Dr. Stasis and his human-animal hybrids. This attack is very important because this is probably only the second actual time Dr. Stasis has attacked the X-Men in a very direct fashion. And the reason why he's doing this is because he's setting some things in motion. He's playing with the X-Men at this precise moment because there's something that he wants. Earlier in this issue, he says that he must have his body on a slab by dusk. Now, who is he referring to? It's very likely that he's referring to Cyclops. But why does he want Cyclops so badly? A lot of what he has been trying to do seems to be highly predicated on Cyclops for some reason. Now, of course, Cyclops is one of the few characters that's keenly aware of what Dr. Stasis has been up to, but I have to wonder if maybe he wants someone else instead because one of Dr. Stasis's subordinates is able to gravely injure Cyclops and put him in a position where he would be very easy for Dr. Stasis to take away. But rather than take Cyclops's corpse from the battlefield, he instead hastens Cyclops' death, killing him, but not before telling him some very pertinent information. We don't know what it is that he's told Cyclops. All we are aware of is that Dr. Stasis is telling him exactly where he can find him. Now, this is a way for Dr. Stasis to test how far mutant resurrection can go as far as bringing back someone with their memories intact. And of course, we know that Cyclops has been returned, all the Captain Krakoa stuff has been put into full swing, and of course, Cyclops knows about the stuff going on with Ben Urich, that his memory is wiped, and he is very suspicious that someone on the Quiet Council is responsible for Ben Urich's memory wipe, and one of the first people that he looks at is Emma Frost, which is someone who I even posited could very potentially well be the person who did it. And as Cyclops muses about the fact that they are fighting a war on two fronts, one with the Quiet Council and of course one against the likes of Dr. Stasis himself. But the thing that kind of makes me wonder is there's a shot we see at the end that kind of has me curious about what Dr. Stasis is playing at here, because there's something that Dr. Stasis Stasis has in his possession that we see at the end of this issue that looks eerily like the clothes we saw Cyclops wearing at the end of X-Men number 6 when he was speaking with Ben Urich and discovered that Ben Urich no longer had any memory of everything Dr. Stasis had told him. And honestly, right now, this is high speculation time because we don't really know who Dr. Stasis is. We don't know his origins. We don't know where he comes from. All we know is that he used to work for Orchis, and he is very likely, for all intents and purposes, a normal human being. But why is he so fascinated with Cyclops when it seems like there's a far more interesting mutant on the X-Men roster that you would think he'd be more interested in getting his hands on? And that is the character Synch. In this issue, and of course we've known this for quite some time, this is something that's been brewing ever since Jonathan Hickman took over the X-Men series, and as early as X-Men issue number 5, we learned that Synch's power has been changing. Now, of course, in House of X, the distinctions of what it requires to become an Omega level mutant or to be classified as one is that your power can have no true upper limit. That of every power set in all the world, doesn't matter if it's human, mutant, or otherwise, if your power has no upper limit when anyone else who has the same power as you, their power would have an upper limit, that would classify you as an Omega level mutant. It's the same reason that a character, and this is an example that's given most often, is the case that Magneto is considered the master of all magnetism. It is the reason why he is, for all intents and purposes, an Omega level mutant. No other character in the Marvel Comics universe has his level of mastery when it comes to wielding the electromagnetic spectrum. Whereas in the case of characters like Forge is not considered an Omega level mutant, even though he is an incredibly powerful technopath. There are other characters in the Marvel Comics universe who can either match his capability or are better than him, even though Forge is considered to be probably the guy when it comes to stuff like what he does. But that doesn't change the fact that there are more powerful technopaths in existence. That said, we also know about the character Hope Summers, who has a power set very similar to Synch's, that she can wield the powers of other mutants who are within her close proximity. Something that Synch has always been able to do ever since he was introduced into the X-Men comics back in 1994's X-Men number 36. Synch has the ability to, as his name implies, synchronize his mutant X gene with other mutant X genes. Now, no exact limit has ever been put on how close a mutant needs to be, but it's always been presumed that they should be at least within anywhere from 20 to 25, maybe even 30 feet of him for this to work. And while in the past it's always been wishy-washy as to whether or not he could sync with not just mutant powers but other people's abilities, it actually has been proven on more than one occasion that Synch has the ability to synchronize his mutant X gene not just with mutants but anybody. This is something not even Hope Summers can do. Hope Summers cannot synchronize her powers with a non-mutant. Now, technically, she has before. She has synchronized her powers with the Scarlet Witch, but when she did that was under a time frame when Scarlet Witch was still considered to be a mutant. Synch has been able to synchronize his powers with not just the post-humans and the Children of the Vault as we saw in Jonathan Hickman's X-Men number 18, but he's also been able to synchronize his powers with Spider-Man. Something that was proven when he was able to, while in close proximity with Spider-Man, not replicate Spider-Man's web shooting capability because, once again, those are gadgets, but he was able to replicate Spider-Man's agility and even his spider sense, just as good if not better than the actual Spider-Man standing next to him. And this is also something that's a huge portion of Synch's abilities, that he can wield the powers of others and use them incredibly efficiently. Even if he's never used their powers before, he has a natural gift at being able to know the best possible way to use someone's powers. We've even seen this in the past during his time in Generation X, where when he used to synchronize with his teammate Chamber's abilities, and Synch learned that Chamber has the ability to fly, something that at the time Chamber didn't know. Now, the reason why we're bringing all this up is because during this issue, Synch is able to use another mutant's abilities who's nowhere near him. During the fight against Dr. Stasis's human-animal hybrids, what he calls his chimeras, a trap is set for the X-Men specifically against Sunfire, because the chimeras in question drank a substance prior to engaging in combat with the X-Men, one that would make them them incredibly flammable, and this makes them tailor-made to combat against Sunfire, who when he unleashes his powers against them, it sets off a massive explosion. And while Sync is aiding Sunfire in trying to put the fire out, synchronizing his abilities with Sunfire's, at a later point, Sync also uses another mutant's abilities, gathering up all the fire into one location. He then wields another mutant's capabilities, creating a telepathic barrier around the fire to extinguish the flames by depriving them of oxygen. Now here's the thing to take into consideration. The only mutants nearby Sync at the time of this battle were Cyclops, Sunfire, and Wolverine. Jean Grey, Polaris, and Rogue were nowhere near the scene. They were still on planet Arakko when all of this happened, so Sync had no time whatsoever to synchronize his abilities with Jean Grey. This means that his power has evolved yet again. Now, of course, if you go back to Jonathan Hickman's X-Men number 18 and 19, we did learn that Sync did have the ability to wield other people's abilities long term, but it seemed as though he needed to keep a piece of them nearby, where in this case he has nothing of Jean Grey's to keep, therefore this was muscle memory. He was able to recall Jean's capabilities without her even being nearby. Now, of course, this came at great stress to Sync himself. As we see when he is finished, he has a massive nosebleed and he is sweating profusely and even passes out, because this is technically the first time he's ever used another mutant's powers from that long a range. Dr. Cecilia Reyes posits, as she did in Jonathan Hickman's X-Men number 5, that this may have something to do with mutant resurrection. As she noted in X-Men number 5, Sync's abilities seem to have increased somewhat after his first resurrection, and that they very likely increased again when he was resurrected after the mission in X-Men number 19 to infiltrate the vault. She also posits that this could also be to do with the fact that he is, for all intents and purposes, one of the oldest mutants living currently. Technically speaking, even though he has died, he spent roughly over 5 centuries in the vault. So that could have also had something to do with the increase in his capabilities. That said, there's a lot to account for here, and it also makes some explanation as to why the High Evolutionary was so interested in having Sync's powers analyzed. But once again, I have often stated that Sync should be classified as an Omega level mutant. His power dwarfs that of someone who is already classified as such. Hope Summers has the exact same ability that Sync does, and yet his power has no upper limit compared to hers. Her limitation is only towards mutant capabilities and being in close proximity. While yes, she can retain power for a little while after she's left the proximity of the mutant in question, Sync can clearly recall powers from people who are nowhere near him, and in this case, a whole planet away from him. Not to mention his power isn't just limited to mutants. So yes, if we are going to classify, and I keep saying this, I've said this on multiple occasions, if we are going to keep classifying Hope Summers as being an Omega level mutant, I see no reason why Sync cannot be considered an Omega level mutant. And we can't even use the excuse, there's already someone with this power set on the list of Omega level mutants, so we can't have another one with the exact same thing. And that's not true. Case in point, there are 2 telepaths on the list of Omega level mutants, that being Jean Grey and Kid Omega. So that is not a good excuse at all. Not to mention, you could even make a case for the characters of Iceman and Storm, who both have temperature manipulation capabilities, whereas Iceman's is more defined as negative temperature manipulation, but Storm's is just general temperature manipulation, but that's neither here nor there. The classifications may either be the exact same or incredibly similar, but regardless, they still exist on the same list. Therefore, Sync should be added to this list, and I think Jerry Duggan is about to do it. I think he is about to pay off what Jonathan Hickman started. Jonathan Hickman had already kind of seemed like he was angling in that direction for Sync to be considered an Omega level mutant. Jonathan Hickman's already bought the gift. Jerry Duggan is just gift wrapping it for us, and I'm here for it. But anyways, that's really everything I really want to talk about with X-Men number 7. There's some other little things going on there, but there's really nothing to speak of just yet. I know some people are probably going to be wondering why I'm not talking about the whole thing with the satellites and ear and, you know, the mutant brain network that they're creating. I'll talk about it another time, at least when we have more information, because right now this is just pie in the sky. But anyways, I love this issue. I love the genuine respect that was put on Cyclops, and I'm loving exactly what they're doing with Sync and building him up to become a much bigger character than what he has ever been in history, and he has greatly deserved it. This is long overdue. But anyways, let me know what you thought about X-Men number 7. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.